the fact that people talk about, they say, well, slavery was bad. We ended slavery, quote unquote. But the right to self-determination did not come as a consequence of that. In fact, slavery, they didn't just end what they call slavery. They ended slavery and then with another amendment made Africans citizens. Wait a minute. How in the hell can you say I'm free with one breath and then the next breath say that I am a citizen? So slavery, the end of slavery did not resolve the issue of self-determination. When there was segregation, no self-determination. Integration, no self-determination. Jim Crow, no self-determination. The fact of the matter is the recapture of self-determination has not yet occurred. So whether you call it slavery, or whether you call it Jim Crow, or integration, or segregation, the issue continues to be that African people do not have the right to self-determination, and that is what the struggle is all about. So folks say that there is a way that there are certain assumptions of what is required for nationhood. And again, this is a discussion immediately that has its origin in the advent of capitalism and the emergence of the European nation. And you know, people have said, and this is important for us to understand because this has been a huge debate. It's been an ongoing debate for a long period of time. And the Marxists really got involved in this discussion because they had to solve certain kinds of problems in terms of making a revolutionary process throughout Europe. And Stalin came up with a certain definition of what the nation was and what were criteria for nationality. It included language, contiguous land-based, common economy, common history, culture, etc. And said, in absence, if you don't have all these things, you don't have a nation, which obviously liquidated Belgium, didn't it? You know, where people speak a couple of languages at least. You know, I think that might be true of Switzerland too. I'm not sure. You know, but that wasn't. You know, anyway, there are all these definitions, all this stuff about what it takes to make a nation. Somebody said there's a discussion about the size of the population, that there has to be enough people to constitute a nation. Just can't say it's a nation without there being a certain number of people. There has to be certainly a sense of sameness. That is obviously a kind of requirement. And what we are talking about is the African nation being a nation that is not consolidated, it's dispersed across the planet Earth. And the African people in this country are part of a dispersed African nation. And how do we know that's true? We know it's true because I said it. Because just like somebody was able to make a statement, we have Italy, now what we have to do is create Italians and set out to do that and succeeded in doing that. The task of the African Revolution is to consolidate the African nation. That is the revolutionary, and this time we're talking about a proletarian nation. Because the truth of the matter is there is a sense of sameness among black people all around the world. Even people who call themselves different things. Africans in Haiti were upset when they saw Katrina. Africans who I knew from Ethiopia meeting in Berlin were upset about what they saw in Katrina. Why? And Africans all around the world were upset about Haiti. I mean, upset about Haiti, pissed off about Haiti, hate the Red Cross for how it's doing in Haiti, hate what Clinton is doing in Haiti, really upset about Haiti. There is a sense of sameness among black people in the world. That is just a fact. So the question is how that is understood, this sense of sameness. How the responsibility of the African Revolution and revolutionaries everywhere is to help Africans to understand that we are Africans. That is a primary identity we have because all people have many different identities. You know that, don't you? They are Baptists, they are Muslims, they are Christians, they are Catholics, they are Masons, you know, there are all kinds of things. They are Northerners and Southerners, you know, etc. But the fundamental thing, they are Bahutu, Batutsi, you know, they are linked, you know, there are many different things. The task is to achieve a consciousness of a primary identity, which is national identity. And that is part of the task of the African Revolution. That is what the ASI is all about. It's a practical problem. It ain't no heavyweight, abstract or theoretical question. It's a practical question that we are in the process now of dealing with, in that I'm saying that APSC and that this kind of conference contributes to taking out in the world the recognition of the African nation, because consciousness is a major factor of that. Not only consciousness among the African people, because we talk about to be a part of a nation, it's not, you just can't be in the nation just because you want to be in the nation. To be a part of a nation means that one has to be accepted by the body of the nation itself. Anybody who's truthful will say that African people in this country are not accepted as a part of some kind of European nation, as a part of this thing, any more than the Mexicans who come across the border, any more than all the other so-called immigrants who they're trying to get the hell out of here. So it is a struggle for national liberation. And when we look at these questions that we're confronted with, about what's happening to young people, the stuffing Africans in the prisons, the national humiliation, that gets liquidated and disguised under the questions of crime and things like this, the terrible stuff where you got stuffed into these prisons. They affect things like the birth rate of the African population. That's been defined as genocide, right? Because they use the example of what happened to the Jews. It's defined as genocide when you take a huge sector of the population and affect their ability to reproduce, which is what happens when you've got such a huge sector of young African men locked up in prison, who it impacts on the reproduction of ourselves as a people. So we are a dispersed nation, and our objective is to make revolution, to liberate ourselves as a nation, and that's what the resistance is all about. And then the point I want to make before closing is that this is not purely an abstract theoretical question. It is something that we know is real because of what we saw with the Garvey movement. We saw that, like Garvey had an incredible movement that united African people all around the world. Not in some kind of fraternal kind of relationships where people just networked with each other, but as a part of a common project under the slogan, Africa for African, those at home and those abroad, that did not only involve Africans on the continent of Africa and throughout the Caribbean. Garvey came here from Jamaica. He didn't say Jamaica for the Jamaicans. Garvey came here from Jamaica and built this incredible organization based on the unity of African people around the world. It wasn't a theoretical question he tried. It was a practical problem that he initiated a struggle to try and resolve. And African people around the world saluted and greeted this thing. It was Africans around the world who in 1919 and 20 put them pennies and dimes and things together and bought a steamship line where more than 100,000 African people came to New York to see the launching of a ship of the Black Star Line that was created by Marcus Garvey. We're not talking about some fanciful thing that was out there. We're talking about concretely, this is what happened. And to destroy that, they had to destroy Garvey, destroy that movement, because that was where Africans around the world were going, and not just Africans on the continent, in the Caribbean and here, but black people in India and Australia were also a part of that movement. So the national question that we are talking about is not some abstract question. We're talking about building a political movement that is informed by the contradictions that we face as a dispersed nation all around the world. And that's when we talk about the right to resist. We're talking about building a movement where resistance is consistent and and normal. And resistance is consistent right now, but it doesn't have the kind of leadership we need. That's why, African young people in particular in a constant state of resistance all the time, not just every now and then, all the time. That's why African young people wear their clothes the way they wear them. If the white man said, do it this way, wear your pants this way, we'll wear them this way. Nobody had a meeting. No meeting happened among African people and say, hey, let's wear our pants like this. If the white man says you're supposed to wear your hat this way, let's wear the hat that way. Anything that has been defined as the norm, the African young people resisted and go against all of that. All the time they're doing it. Don't do anything in school, anywhere else that the system says you're supposed to do. They're in a constant state of resistance. And the responsibility of the revolution is to harness that resistance, give it direction, give it ideology, give it organization, and let it go. And make this a contest with our oppressor. And I want to say that this resistance among African people is going to grow in strength, depth, and it's going to utilize all means possible. It is not going to be a resistance that's nice and pretty and pleasant, etc. It will use all forms, just like resistance any place in the world, because what is going up against is not nice and pleasant. And it will employ all kinds of weapons. And the fact is, even if we look at what imperialism is doing to young people, and particularly young African men in this country, it is creating the soldiers that's going to be necessary to bring it down. That's exactly what it's doing. The attitude, character that these young Africans have, they just don't have organization, ideological understanding, etc., to do something with it. But that's exactly what the system is doing. It's